Welcome Libra to your in-depth monthly horoscope for April 2024 for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. I'm going to share some standout details to look out for. Please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs particularly relevant to your sign. Now there's a big amount of energy fermenting in the part of your situation to do with relating this month, which is exciting because you are the relator of the zodiac. But there are some potential catches and gotchas, not least that Mercury, the planet of communication, slams on the brakes on the first day for 23 days in that seventh house of relating. The good news is your ruler Venus moves into that area on the 5th after forging a magical alliance with Neptune on the 3rd. But we also have a total solar eclipse. But it's a total solar eclipse with a very rare connection to Chiron. As the month goes on, however, we're going to see the Sun make its way into the sign of Taurus on the 19th. That's a much more psychological development, and it does bring into play a clash with Pluto in your 5th house. The 5th house very much to do with where you want to express your individuality and have fun. The 8th house is much more to do with power, control, potentially jealousy, but also very deep psychological development. So that to share with you too. Please stay with me for more. But if you are new to my channel, thank you so much for joining us. This is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please share them. I interact with each comment. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for your company. I much appreciate all your likes, comments, shares and subscriptions. If you've yet to subscribe and racing towards 120,000 subscribers, please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. That means every time I drop a video, you will get an alert. And if you would like to ascend above this zodiac broadcast and embrace the power of personal astrology, if you give me 3 pieces of your birth data of time and date and place, or if you don't know your time, date and place, I can produce for you your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights into the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but also a much more intimate understanding of how to work with these energies more effectively going forwards. And in my special package of 30% off, you can also get your 12-month transit report. That's the moving planets in the sky interacting with that unique blueprint that only you were given when you were born. Please see the link below for more. So Libra, on the screen now is the event chart for April for you. And you can see the midpoint is in the sign of Aquarius, your sister air sign, but in the 5th house. The 5th house can be fun, sociable, certainly where we can showcase our talent. The midpoint's the balance of the thrust of the Sun, which begins this month in your 7th house in Aries, and the receptiveness of the Moon in your 3rd house, chatty, in the free-spirited Sagittarius. But the balance of those two energies unified is Aquarius. So this month, having some fun, being playful, the 5th house, but also developing your individual talents is going to be important. What's not to like? But let's look at the position of Uranus in house 8. House 8 is where we're most devoted, and it's where the Sun's going to move and your ruler Venus later in April. Also got Jupiter there as well. Now you may be aware that these two are going to come into an exact conjunction on the 21st of April, which is a once in a 14-year event, but they're actually very close together already, within 3 degrees. But the 8th house for you could be where there's going to be transformations. But Uranus doesn't like being in Taurus, and although it does exalt in the sign of Scorpio, I think for you, this position of Uranus squaring up with the midpoint in Aquarius points towards, if there is a romantic situation that you're involved with at the start of this month, or you encounter someone this month, and you feel that you're having to give away your individuality too much, it may be something that you're going to push back against. And that collective in the 7th house is reminding you it's not just about your skill as a relator, a listener, and bending into other people's needs because you're a past, that's part of what makes you very special indeed. But also it's important with the 7th house to set a boundary. And I think that square between the midpoint and Uranus is saying, if you feel compromised in terms of who you want to be, you will need to set a boundary. Now you can see there's a whole load of energy, including your ruler, in house 6. That's much more to do with the pragmatic details of life, our structures, where we need to be disciplined, also where we need to show some sacrifices. Now you have Saturn in that area, which suggests your physical vitality does need to be measured out a little bit. You won't have oodles of it, I don't feel. And also your ruler Venus, although it's in a beautiful conjunction with the part of fortune, which could be lucky if you're applying for jobs, it is also conjunct Neptune, which is very idealistic. If you're wanting, if you meet somebody new, if you're wanting someone to tune in to a higher kind of spiritual level, it may be that you just need to be a little bit patient to see if that person can live up to your high expectation. But just look at that position of the moon, because it does square up with Neptune. So if you try to be too productive, the 6th house, which is where Mars and Saturn are, and push to get every part of your life working in a metronomically organized way, what can happen is you will drain your vitality, because the moon square Neptune is a very sensitive influence. It also suggests that when it comes to conversations at work, you can actually pick up people's energy in a non-verbal way, which won't necessarily be good for you. Which is why, with your ruler Venus moving into your 7th house on the 5th, but forging an amazing link to Pluto, the first for over 200 years, that's a unique moment in your whole developing situation to set your boundaries, but in a way that you can still retain that gracefulness and that charm, which is very much part of you. Also, there's a connection between the Sun and Chiron on the 5th, and that's very potentially karmic. If you are wanting to meet somebody and you met them around the 5th, oh my word, it would just be so important. I couldn't absolutely guarantee you that this would be a life partner, but what I could say to you is that this person will have a profound impact on you and you on they. So the 5th is a critical moment in this month, despite the fact that Mercury does go into the retrograde on the 1st in your sector of relating. But think of it like this: Mercury retrogrades have a popular message that everything gets jammed up, fails, causes glitches, our devices pack in, the trusted domestic appliances fail, our ticket arrangements for travel get cancelled at the last minute, and all of that, as you know, is entirely possible. But the 7th house energy of Mercury could be pushing you to rethink how you listen, how you connect to others. There's a lot to be gained by actually finding a delicate balance between what you need and what others want, but that doesn't mean to say that you have to give away your power completely. Now, people who have the moon or Venus in their 7th house can sometimes find it difficult to feel heard and can sense a lack of being valued by the other person or other people, because they're so attuned, so skilled at getting along with other people. The 7th house is completely the opposite to the 1st house, which is about our identity. So I feel at the start of this month you may need to rethink a few things in terms of your approach. Are you perhaps in a little bit of a rut around an existing relationship? Is there a way that you could reinvigorate it in some way? And with the solar eclipse happening on the 8th in the north and 9th in the south, and within 1 minute of Chiron, this would be a marvellous moment to try to put some healing into all sorts of relationships. So things have bumped along the bottom. You have really gone through it with Pluto going through the sign of Capricorn. But also since Neptune, and then in the last year, Saturn have gone through your 6th house, it's been so much give for Libran people, and really not feeling that other people, particularly family members, or in a more emotional context, other people have been so conscious of where you've been. And at times that's been profoundly disappointing. Also, Libran people can feel, if they're not in a relationship or not heard, almost lost. So this is a month when you could try to dissolve that feeling that you have to be in a relationship. You can decide to re-engineer an existing relationship, or the relationship with yourself about relationships, whether you're in one or not, because that's the value of that particular set of energies. Mercury retrograde, Venus into the 7th, sextiling Pluto, and the Sun applying to the North Node for the first time in 18.6 years in this way, at this degree. And then we also have, from the 10th to the 13th, the retreat in Mercury meets the advancing Sun. There's a cazimi, an inferior conjunction on the 11th. That's because of the retrograde. We have the Sun, Mercury, Earth. But still the Sun amplifies the energy of Mercury. If something has been lost in translation, this Mercury retrograde could give you the opportunity to revisit it and resolve it. Also, Mercury applies to Chiron on the 13th. From the 14th to the 19th, and exactly on the 19th, Mercury and Venus come together in a beautiful alliance. So despite Mercury's retrograde, so many opportunities. Also, your ruler applies to the node, 17th, Chiron, 21st. So many opportunities to reset relationships on a better footing, or bring someone new into your world in a quite stunning way. Now, from the 19th to the 25th, the Sun does start to forge a tense right angle to Pluto. On the 19th itself, the Sun travels into the sign of Taurus, which for you is the 8th house. However much discussion and dialogue there's been with all that 7th house energy, the Sun moving to join up with Jupiter and Uranus on the 19th in your 8th house is really going to ask the brutal question, what is the true meaning? Because we can have charming chat, but it's what the subtext means. Don your detective's Mac at this part of the month. It's going to help you to decode what comes up. The passionate full moon of the 23rd is in Scorpio, the most intense full moon of the whole year. Now for you, it's possible that you may have to discuss finances, particularly as this full moon T-squares with Pluto. If your approach to resources is different from someone you're closely connected to, could be a family member, it could be an offspring, could be a business partner or a romantic partner, there can be a tussle right at the end of this month. Fortunately, on the 24th, Mercury goes direct, but we're not completely out of the proverbial long grass, because Mercury doesn't emerge from its post-retrograde shadow until the 13th of May. But the other piece of news is Venus, your ruler, joins up with the Sun, Jupiter and also Uranus on the 29th. But of course on the 21st we have Jupiter and Uranus become exact, but they are supported by that point by the hustle bustle energy of Mars. If there is something that you wanted to be very dynamic about in terms of investment, entrepreneurial plans, business, marshalling your long-term resources in a more imaginative and fresh way, Uranus, with a spirit of hope, Jupiter, the drive of Mars, and then Venus comes in to support all of them, and also the Sun on the 29th. But Venus is mangled by Pluto too. So even if you've been getting on well with someone romantically earlier in the month, there could be some deep politics that come up by the 29th if you feel that the attraction to you, or they feel the attraction from you to them, is based on sex only or a financial motive only. Because when Venus and Pluto square, that is the question that we need to ask ourselves. What is our motive? and also what is the motive of the other person. Also, Mars is applying to Neptune in the last few days of this month because it's going to be moving into your 7th house as we go into the start of May. So that change with Mars as this month ends is going to give you a heck of a lot of feistiness if you feel someone has been mucking around, not playing fair, not listening, not collaborating and cooperating in the way that you may be very keen to do for much of this month. But there is some real challenges as we get into that last phase of the month, really about how meaningful, how sincere, how devotional the other side is, or how devotional you feel you are, and if there is any tests around that which don't feel right and cramp your ability to be a free spirit, which is Pluto and the midpoint in Aquarius. By the end of the month, you may decide to break free. So it's a fascinating month, Libra. I can't stress enough how that midpoint in Aquarius squaring up with Uranus is a big part of the story, because superficially it looks like there's huge opportunities to relate well this month, and there certainly are. And remember, the solar eclipse provides a backdrop energy for the next 6 months. So if you've got any self-limiting thoughts or attitudes around your worth as a person to be in a relationship, or you think, I'm not going there, they've just caused me problems, I need to stay safe, totally understandable. But Chiron's asking you to rethink all of that. So it's a very intense month, but with huge opportunities. But both at the start of the month and the end of the month, you're going to find out whether something is really worth how much you want to put into it and how much someone wants to put into it with you. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Please like, comment, share, or subscribe.